Hello, I'm Georgina Cornwall, and I'm an adjunct instructor teaching a variety of biology-related courses out of Colorado Mountain College in Aspen, as well as our online campus. I've been with CMC since 2009, and I'm a Quality Matters course reviewer. I'm passionate about teaching technologies and delivering online courses of the highest quality. If you ever need any help in teaching technologies or course design, I'm happy to help you out. Just look me up. Assessment is a huge topic, so when I was asked to prepare a short presentation on assessment, I had to take a moment to brainstorm the most important pieces that we as instructors need to consider. So first, we'll ask the question why, then look at the difference in assessment types, discuss how to integrate Bloom's taxonomy into your assessments, and aligning assessments with learning objectives and outcomes, and finally, we'll address the use of rubrics. So why do we use assessments? First, we use them to provide both teachers and students with information about the teaching and learning process. What sort of grips do our students have on the content we're delivering? This is an important question to ask. Secondly, we use assessments to improve our effectiveness at multiple levels. Assessments happen at many levels in colleges and universities, and our accreditation depends upon it. If we deliver effective assessments, we can assess our own effectiveness and make improvements to our course delivery, right? Let's take a moment to consider the purpose of our assessments. Effective teaching involves two main types: formative assessment, in which students receive regular feedback that's designed to help them understand where they are in the learning process, and summative assessments, which are designed to evaluate student learning. Things like a midterm exam, unit exam, or final project fall into the category of summative assessments. Formative assessments are generally low-stakes opportunities that could involve in-class activities, reflection, or self-assessment, and they often occur during the course of a class, whereas exams are much higher stakes and occur separate from the active instruction in a course, for example, at the end of a unit or midterm. Here's a quick example to give you insight into the difference between formative and summative. When a chef tastes the soup as he's making it, that's formative. He can make adjustments, changing the flavors. But when the guests actually taste the soup, that's a summative assessment of the quality of the chef's soup. Formative assessments allow students to develop their metacognitive skills. What is metacognition? Well, metacognition is literally thinking about thinking, and it's an important skill for us to help our students develop. In fact, it's vital for their success in college and beyond. Naturally, the more specific the feedback that we can offer, the more we promote reflection and improvement based on that feedback. Here is where a well-written rubric can be an invaluable tool, but we'll talk about those in a moment. By now, you've probably been exposed to Bloom's taxonomy, and if you haven't yet, do yourself a favor and seek out the basics. In short, learning is scaffolded and begins with lower order thinking upon which we can build higher order thinking skills. When constructing learning activities and assessments, we should be considering how we are scaffolding the learning activities to support that higher order thinking. I prefer to look at the pyramid in these terms because the reality is that out there in the real world, our students will be expected to operate in these higher order thinking areas, which brings up the point of authentic assessment. The world outside of the classroom is not multiple choice. Our students will not arrive at their job on the first day, be given a task, and provided 5 options, check the right boxes, and then head home. They have to do something with the information that they've learned. So as an example, the first assignment for a chapter might be the auto-graded interactive digital materials like SmartBook from McGraw-Hill or Davis Advantage or Pearson's Mastering products. These provide great foundation at the remember and understand levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Students get instant formative feedback, and we as instructors haven't created ourselves heaps more grading. When we get to summative assessments, a multiple choice exam might be appropriate. This is another place that textbook ancillaries can come in very handy. Many of the digital test banks are quite robust and scaled according to Bloom's taxonomy. Creating deep, scaled pools of questions means that you can create tests in which students get a different test, but also an equivalent test to each other. Each student is offered a certain number of lower order questions, mid-level questions, and a few higher order thinking questions. But each exam is different, which means you can create uncheatable tests where your test questions don't end out there on the internet on sites like Course Hero. Another point to consider in creating authentic assessments is how they align with your learning objectives or learning outcomes. In recent years, there's been a push to create measurable learning outcomes so that students can use their metacognitive skills to assess their own understanding. This graphic touches on some of the other considerations in construction of learning outcomes. And this chart shows you some action verbs that you can use in constructing learning outcomes. You can find endless lists of Bloom's action verbs out there on the internet. Keep one out as you consider learning objectives for your course. Using these words will lead to measurable learning outcomes at the appropriate level of Bloom's cognition. The main point here is that we need to make sure our learning activities and assessments align with our learning objectives. So as you create an activity or assessment, consider which outcome or objective they are helping your students meet. Again, keep thinking authentic assessment. I really like this graphic because it takes the concept a bit further by suggesting activities that align with each Bloom's domain. It might inspire ideas as you consider your course design. Finally, I wanted to spend a moment discussing the value of using rubrics. In Canvas, you can create a rubric for anything you can assign points to. If you haven't used them before, it can seem a bit overwhelming. But remember, as with our course design, these are works in progress. And the bottom line is they make your life much easier when it comes to grading and remaining objective. They also give the student insight into how they are being graded so that they can tailor their efforts and again engage in their metacognitive skills in self-assessment. When you're creating rubrics, I recommend you start by outlining the parameters you would use to grade an assignment. An easy start to a rubric is to put those descriptions under the criteria description area, then simply use points for the ratings. As you use the rubric over time, you can add specific descriptions to the rating categories, which in turn reduces the number of comments you have to write in order to provide meaningful, actionable feedback to your students. To grading with rubrics, it's really easy. You simply click on a point value for each category, then you can provide student-specific feedback in the comments area if you feel that's necessary. Anyway, long story short, using rubrics makes your life easier, your expectations of students clear, and it enhances their metacognitive skills. So I hope I kept the presentation brief enough and that you found the presentation informative. I welcome any questions you have. You can email me from your CMC email. Simply start typing G Cornwall and the rest will pop up so that you can send me a message. And if you ever need any help implementing these ideas, I'm happy to help you with the technology behind it. Happy assessment making!